In Europe, our leaders are still of a type that, yeah, in a way, it's pretty easy to be ambiguous about them if you don't lapse into loathing. In this piece, I want to talk about Macron, Keir Starmer, and Merz and their apparent drug scandal and what it means, even though, in a sense, it was just internet hysteria. First of all, let's have a look at the first clip where it looks like they're using drugs. Let's have a look at that.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah? It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France.
Bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
What is interesting is it seems under close scrutiny that it was simply a napkin and a cocktail stick. It wasn't, in fact, a spoon and drug paraphernalia. But what it made me feel is that there's such a lack of trust and faith and such a loathing, a kind of loathing emerging for this class of WEF bureaucratic leaders that I actually actively wanted it to be true. I want to legitimize my outrage towards them because, in a sense, a story that reveals that they're either merely human or corrupt or flawed is so in alignment with my intuition about these people. And it makes me feel that what we're perhaps reaching is the end of tribalism and the need for a radical revision of the way that we run our nations and and certainly our continents. Because even if they weren't taking drugs, and it really seems that they weren't taking drugs, I mean, Keir Starmer taking cocaine would probably cheer me up. It couldn't deteriorate his possibility. His personality. It could only improve it. And what I feel about it is that on some level, we know it's ridiculous that these ordinary and somewhat banal people have so much power and influence. Because you hear him talking, oh, we're going through your bathroom, or you see the way that they're kind of clumsy socially. And on some level, we recognize we can't have entire nations, let alone a continent. We can't have wars sanctioned, taxes diverted, moral barometers set by people that are so plainly flawed, particularly with someone like Keir Starmer, whose morality seems so protean. Now, I know that you're Americans and sort of isolationists by nature, and maybe you don't care at all about what happens in Europe. But I wondered if at all you guys had a sense that when you see a video like that, the fact that you want it to be a drug scandal, that tells you something about what your feelings are for Keir Starmer, Macron, Merz, those kind of politicians. I wonder what you think, Dave.
Well, first off, the way you're framing it, I love that because whether it would surprise us or not, you're right. I saw the video and, it was a little grainy when I saw it on Twitter at first. And my initial reaction, it wasn't necessarily I want it to be true, but I was just like, oh, of course that's what they're doing. Right. I was just like, of course whether they were or not, the fact that my initial reaction was, of course, they're sitting there doing coke is kind of a crazy reaction. You remember the prime minister during COVID, the prime minister of New Zealand? What was her name? Hardeen or something?
Something or another.
Yeah. And remember, she came out and they had the most draconian lockdowns. And throughout COVID, her face kept getting more gaunt and circles under her eyes. And she would come out and she would be like twitchy. So there's all of these, and there's many other leaders that we've seen have these little moments. Macron's had a few of them. So the idea that these people would be all drugged up, and we know that actually, even though we always talk about Nazis these days, we know that the Nazis, the real Nazis way back when, were really hopped up on meth and a bunch of other stuff. And so nothing would surprise me. But to your broader point, Russell, about like the supposed moral authority that these people have and everything, I think this is the biggest problem that all these countries are going through right now. They've had such crappy leaders for so long who did not care about their own people, whether it was Merkel in Germany, who basically destroyed her own country through immigration, or the litany of prime ministers that you guys have had across the pond. And that seems to be, to get this to the first segment, the complete difference with Trump. Trump was the billionaire who was in it with all these guys, and yet he actually seems to love the people, and that's the reaction to him.
Yes. I wonder what you think, Jillian. And I want to say that your hair looks absolutely amazing, and everyone heard your dog barking.
I tried to mute it. I tried to very sneakily push the freaking mute button. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. I'll have to beat them later. Except I love them almost as much as my kids, so I don't know if that will happen. Never mind. All right, let's move on.
Tough love.
I'll take the hair compliment though all day long, as Dave knows. With that said, I think that politics attracts a really disgusting group of people, and it's unfortunate. And we've seen these kind of drug scandals here in America, in the EU, in New Zealand, throughout my entire lifetime. They just found cocaine in the White House with Hunter. They thought it was Hunter Biden's, or nobody knows who it is. Like Matt Gaetz had a drug scandal. They're all, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, if you're drawn to that industry, I think you're inherently narcissistic, and anybody lovely that I would love to, I kind of call it like my own personal Game of Thrones. Like, who do I want to run California, and who do I want to run Florida, and who do I, when DeSantis steps down, anybody you approach. If you go to Corolla and say run for governor, he'd rather be dead.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it. They're like, oh, that's a disgusting, filthy industry with disgusting and filthy people, and I would rather stick needles in my eyeballs or get a gasoline enema. I'm not surprised if that is them doing cocaine or not, because I think that's the kind of people that are drawn to those kinds of jobs, unfortunately.
But then I'm
so nihilistic today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, wow.
No, I know. I'm going to pick it up. Buck it up, guys. I go ahead, Sage.
Well,
sorry.
but, I mean, yes, and I agree. And people have asked me about that when I was in Connecticut. I'm like, first of all, why would I waste any energy running in the state of Connecticut? Florida might be a different story, but at the end of the day, I ran the other direction too. Absolutely not. I got a couple calls from Washington, D.C. Hell no, absolutely not. But I do believe, because we all know some people who are in it who are incredible human beings.
A few.
Who truly do care and want to make a difference. I think on maybe lesser or different levels, it's like military, right? And that military service, the difference is that truly is about team, and there's no chest pounding. But I know, we know Tulsi Gabbard. We know so many of these people who we know.
I love Tulsi.
For the right reason.
She's my high hope, but
I know,
man.
She gives us
she's
for
rare.
Sure.
She's rare.
But you know what? And as soon as Russell started talking about this, it brought me right back to that White House cocaine scandal as well. And I remember going, who was it? Let me just guess, because I know it was one of them, and I can probably pick out which one, and I'd be fine if it was any of them. Like, is that sick, Russell, that we were like, oh, I hope this is true. Maybe it is just to validate our thoughts on not just them as human beings from what we know from afar, which maybe isn't fair, but how we have seen, it's not their words, it's their actions. And their actions have disappointed me in so many ways for so long that I'm like, I hope it is him.
Yeah. I think it's because we know that they are fallible. I'm reading the book of Judges at the moment, that period in Israel's journey where they didn't have a king or a leader. They had simply appointed judges, regional leadership, and it was a very chaotic time in scripture and for the tribes. And often I feel that we've invested too much power in leaders, given that we know human beings are fallible and flawed. I say this even now. I've got like a screwed up napkin just there on my desk, which I can assure you.
I don't know what was happening there.
I was like,
this was going to be a very different show suddenly.
It's not OnlyFans, guys. I'm asking some serious moral questions today for $20, just $20. No, I suppose the fact that we know that our leaders are fallible shows that the amount of power they have, which is kind of the sort of spiritual power that we've invested them in, is a power they cannot wield and should not wield. And you've sort of, in a way, in your own way, said what Billy Connolly, the brilliant Scottish comedian, said: the desire to be a politician should bar you for life from being one. Maybe that's
oh my God, that's it. That's it,
And
Russell. That is it.